you need to be getting people's emails, so that's something we probably started in 2012, 2013. Yeah, because otherwise it would be, so it wouldn't be good because we would have missed so many, and we still missed a lot of opportunity, but that's okay. I was like, no, emails like over everything kind of thing. So we were able to market to our email list with our shirts, and that's honestly more than the website and more than social media, where we would probably get the most sales when we send an email out about it.
This is Rebel Therapist, a podcast for entrepreneurs who are trained as therapists and who want to level up their businesses, make a bigger impact, feel fulfilled, and be very well paid. I'm your host, Annie Schusler. This week, I'm talking to Jessica Jones, a registered dietitian and co-founder of the very popular podcast, Food Heaven Made Easy. Listen as we talk about how Jessica and Wendy Lopez developed their podcast, exactly how they plan and create each episode, and how they maintain a healthy business partnership and close friendship. I'm really into bringing you amazing people like Jessica. It's helpful to hear from people in our field, other therapists, but it is also so helpful to hear from people in adjacent fields. Sometimes that's where I've gotten my best ideas and practices, and that's been true for the rebels in my mastermind as well. Sometimes we can think more creatively and more openly when we're hearing from people we don't usually hear from. Welcome, Jessica. I am so excited to talk to you. And as I mentioned, I'm a little bit fangirling, but I will remain calm.
You're so funny and so sweet. I'm so excited to be here with you, Annie. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so you and your close friend, Wendy Lopez, are the founders of the podcast, Food Heaven Made Easy, and it's all about food and health. So I want to have you share with us why this movement is so important to you.
Ooh, that's a really good question. Well, I think there's a lot of reasons why it's important to me. Like, obviously, we know that nutrition is important just for our health and our overall kind of well-being. But I think one thing that gets lost in the conversation is just food as pleasure. And I'm having this conversation with folks a lot, especially recently, and also with the clients that I work with, that yes, big part of food is nutrition and energy and feeling great, but there's also pleasure involved, which can, include family traditions or culture, all these different things that I think get overlooked in the name of nutrition. So I think when we bring those two things together and we find that balance that works for us, food can be a really powerful thing. And I'm really passionate about helping people figure out what that balance is for them.
Okay. And who do you find your listeners are? What have you learned about, who is listening the most?
So a couple of years ago, we actually we worked with a marketing person to help us it was like looking at who our ideal person was based on what we know. And what we kind of came up with is, a woman who's, probably in her late 20s, early 30s. Obviously, like there's people who don't fall within that spectrum, but that's kind of like our core, who is somebody who wants to eat healthier, but has kind of this all or nothing mentality with nutrition, maybe has tried diets before and they haven't really worked, but not sure if, the next best diet is around the corner, or if, they should just learn kind of sustainable habits. So kind of like being conflicted in that way. She's also somebody who, maybe works like a nonprofit, or is a student or is in graduate school, doesn't have a ton of money and needs to know, like, how do I eat healthfully in a way that's not going to break the bank? And, she's somebody who also really loves food and gets kind of bored with eating the same thing over and over, or kind of like that bland, idea of what nutrition quote unquote should be. And she might also be somebody whose family might be from the Caribbean. Maybe she's like first generation, maybe has parents who are experiencing different health conditions like diabetes, heart disease, and are trying to work with like helping them live healthier lives in a way that's actually effective. And also just really trying to prevent, maybe she has pre-diabetes and is trying to prevent having any of these issues health issues herself, or at least stave them off for longer. So that's kind of what we came up with. And then we've done surveys, who is our target person? And it's actually pretty consistent with that. Yeah, we do.
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
we do a reader survey to our newsletter list every year. And we usually get I would say 500 to 1,000 people who fill it out and just giving their demo info. And maybe at least 60% are women of color, 99% are women. They kind of fall, within that range with, income bracket. So yeah, it's kind of as long as we create things that we think are really going to serve Chrisette, who's our target person, then we're all good for the most part.
Oh, great. Chrisette.
Yes.
Okay. And so you now have this really successful podcast with Wendy. And when you were starting out with this podcast, did you expect it to keep growing, or as you were just starting it, what was kind of the business purpose of it at the very beginning?
Yeah, there was no business purpose. That is a regret, I would say, just in general. But it was really just, so initially we did this web series that we worked together for the New York City Department of Health doing these cooking demos and nutrition workshops. And we were friends before that. And we were just oh, wow, we seem to have good chemistry. And it seems like people are coming to our workshops. They're liking our message. Let's continue this, once the market ends, because it was a seasonal job. And so we kind of met about it and just decided, okay, well, maybe we can put this on Brooklyn Public Access Television, because I lived in Brooklyn at the time. Wendy lives in the Bronx and lived in the Bronx at that time. And we did that. We put it in Brooklyn Access, this healthy cooking, nutrition kind of show, which was fun. But then people would be hey, I don't live in Brooklyn, or I don't have cable, which was everybody we knew. So they're put it online. So we put it on YouTube, and we had this goal. I remember one time, I think it was 2012. We're just let's just do one video every Monday for a year and see what happens. I wouldn't recommend doing anything like this, but we were just we don't know what we're doing. Let's just see. And we did that at one video every Monday for a year. And what happened was I ended up moving back to California and we're we can't do these videos anymore. It's not going to work.
Well, so the videos, the two of you were together, and would you be talking? Would you be cooking? What was?
Yeah. So every other video would be either cooking something or doing a nutrition video. So for example, one pot pasta, and we'd always break down the cost of the meals per serving so people would know. We do stuff like that. And then nutrition wise, maybe we talk about lactose intolerance in one episode. Maybe we would talk about healthy snacking. Maybe we would talk about cancer prevention. So just a lot of topics in the videos, and they would all be maybe 5 minutes or less. And we would be together. They were filmed for the most part, they were in my apartment in Brooklyn. But once I left Brooklyn and we were well, we can't do these videos anymore because that's not going to work from, different coast. We were well, let's just do a podcast. And I had experience a long time ago, because I was originally a journalism student. So I have a degree in journalism, and that's my original kind of thing and passion, which is why I love writing so much. And when I was in school, I worked for this website by this activist. Her name is Farai Chidea, and it was called Pop and Politics, about the intersection of pop culture and politics. Anyway, so we had a podcast to go with it. That was maybe 2005.
It was really
Yes.
early in the podcast movement.
It was before. It was maybe 2004 even. It was amazing. I loved it so much. And I just forgot about it. And so then I was let's do this podcast. And that was in 2015. So it was still people had podcasts, but now I think it's just exploding. And then we just kind of did it as we'll see, it's fun. Didn't think,
just an experiment.
Didn't think anything of it. Still at that point, didn't really have any business plan. And then we just realized, wow, this is so fun. We really like this, a lot more even than video, because you can, video, you gotta sometimes, look a little cute, get dress up, put on makeup. Today I'm literally, I did shower and I did work out, but I'm literally in pajamas. So it's nice to do a podcast. And in the last, I would say, couple of years, we started thinking about and not started thinking about, but started actually monetizing the podcast. But that wasn't our initial thing with anything. It was always just a creative outlet for fun. It wasn't really about making any money. We had no plan. We had no goals, nothing, which I wouldn't recommend.
Except that it worked.
Yeah.
I mean, so I think the fact that you started with this passion and this love for the material and for each other really translated it into being such an engaging podcast. But so at the time when you started, so in 2015, this wasn't a financial thing. So were you each running your own businesses at that point?
No. So in 2015, we still work full time. And the way that we even started making any money with Food Heaven was literally the shirt that I'm wearing now. It's like kale spinach collar chart I wear every day. I have multiple versions of it though. We were selling these shirts.
Oh.
Yeah. And Wendy actually had the idea. And so I think maybe we made $1,500. I don't remember. They definitely sold out, I think. And then we're like, okay, so every penny we made, we just reinvested it. We only really started paying ourselves maybe like 3 years ago. So we just reinvest it. And and so after we made that money, then we're like, oh, well, we should create like, people are asking us for this information. We're dietitians. Like, let's create some, downloadable materials online. Like, so we did a healthy eating starter kit. We did a vegetarian starter kit. And at the time, we even had a weight loss starter kit, which now we have completely shifted from weight loss. And we focus on health at every size, intuitive eating. And so all of that, we've even, I don't know how much you talk about that.
Well, no, that's been, I did want to ask you about that because that's been an amazing transition to hear. Yeah. So at that point, so you were just starting with these smaller offers.
Exactly.
In the beginning. Yeah. And then selling them through the podcast.
No. So we didn't even we did have a podcast at that time. No, we weren't selling anything through the podcast. Oh. And honestly, the podcast wasn't even in 2015, I think it probably came out once a month. Then it was like every other week because people were like, we want more. And then now it's weekly with seasons, where we take breaks. And we're just actually coming back with the launch of our next season coming up. And we probably will end up going weekly. But the podcast was strictly just information based. We were selling all the stuff on our website and maybe on Instagram, people would see oh, where can I get the shirt? But it was just on our website. And we always, I'm trying to think of what year we started an email list. So my mom is kind of entrepreneur. So there's certain things that I just know, you need to be getting people's emails, So that's something we probably started in 2012, 2013.
Oh, that's genius. Yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise it would be, so it wouldn't be good because we would have missed so many, and we still missed a lot of opportunity, but that's okay. I was like, no, emails over everything kind of thing. So we were able to market to our email list with our shirts. And that's honestly more than the website and more than social media where we would probably get the most sales when we send an email out about it.
Excellent. Okay. And then from there, you're selling the t-shirt, you're selling these smaller products. And I'm just curious, how did your vision for your business and especially for your shared business develop over time?
I think we ended up just really enjoying the work and kind of the community that we had created. It was a nice, I don't want to say break, but contrast to clinical work. As a therapist know, it can be a lot. So I think having the other creative outlets, the podcast, and we do a lot of recipe development and stuff like that, it really just helped kind of make things more balanced. And we just thought okay, it just got to a point of, every year or every 6 months, just reassessing okay, is this working? Do we like what we're doing? What don't we like? What can we cut? How do we make sure we have more time to do these things? And definitely in the last few years have gotten a lot more business minded with it, which is I know there's people who just start business minded and then it's oh, they blow up and overnight it's oh, it just happened so fast. That is not our story at all. It's very much slow and steady kind of thing. But I think like every year, we have kind of consistently, we're working at like kind of doubling our income or increasing it, every year. Cause it started, I know the first year we, incorporated, or I don't know what's the word, like became an official business, like we were negative. And then like a lot, which was, it was helpful on taxes, but just because you were able to write that off. But then consistently since then, it's like every year predictably, it's like, okay, it doubles and then it doubles. And then hopefully it'll continue with that trend. But yeah, that's kind of the story of like what our thought process was.
And in working together, I think that's one thing that you have that is pretty rare, is having a partnership that seems to be working so well. What do you think that's about? Do you think that's luck, that you lucked into finding each other, or are there things that you've done along the way with communication to keep that relationship so successful as a friendship and a business partnership?
Yeah, that's a really good question that I have to like think about it, because I like recently we're getting asked this question more and more, because I think people, they look and they're like, oh wow, it must be so nice to have like a partner, which I think it really is, just because as like in a business, you're still living your life. So you're still going to go through ups, downs, whether it's breakups, whether it's you're having a bad day, whether it's you're having a bad month or a bad year. And to know that like, if you can't get to it, somebody else will, I think is priceless. Or just to have someone to kind of always bounce ideas off of, or to share the load, basically, I think is really helpful. And then to also have different strengths that you kind of bring in. Like I would say I think we're both everything, honestly. I really, truly do. But I would say I probably am more naturally a little bit more of like the business mind and a little more entrepreneurial. And Wendy is like naturally very creative. But we're both interested in both. And I think we're both business and creative. So it's kind of like finding the balance of like, okay, what is it that you're going to own? Like Wendy definitely likes social media a lot more than I do. But I love, like I do all the newsletter marketing, and I love the marketing side of things. So just figuring out what your strengths are, and they'll change. Cause I know for a minute I was doing just marketing, just business and all of that stuff. And then I was like, you know what? I want to do more creative. Like I want to do more photography, because as a journalism major, I would take photojournalism classes, and I love taking pictures too. So I think just always reevaluating what it is that you're enjoying. And we try to do that. It's like, okay, I know I like this, but I don't like this. We also work very differently. I think, we're both really hard workers, but I am more, I don't know if the word is like, I'm probably more type A for sure. Mm-hmm. And I don't know the therapist terms, but where it's like, I like to work really early. So maybe starting at 7 or 8. Wendy kind of is more take my time. Like maybe I feel like starting at 9. Maybe I feel like starting at 11. I like to be done
less scheduled kind of.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Less scheduled, less, structured, more kind of like, how am I feeling, versus I'm more like, structured, scheduled with projects. I like clumping them all together. She likes taking her time and working on maybe one thing a week. Not one thing a week, but maybe like one recipe a week, like just have more creative space. So I think knowing that too, it works out really well because we're on different coasts. So by the time I'm getting up and working and she's getting up, it's like literally the same time, even though there's a 3-hour time difference. So that's one thing. And I think, trying to maintain a friendship outside of the business. So we're still friends and we still talk every day, like even if it's nothing business related. And sometimes it's hard. I'm not going to lie. Like we don't always like see eye to eye on everything. But I think at this point, I kind of know Wendy's personality and like kind of what ticks her. And I think she knows my personality and what makes me tick. And like, if there is an issue, I think we're able to just be like, hey girl, like I wasn't really feeling that. Or like, I felt like this hasn't happened in a few years, but like, I felt like that was really passive aggressive or whatever. Cause it's like, there's always no relationship is perfect.
Yes. So if you can have a hard conversation, get out the other side and still feel closer, like that must be so key.
I think it is. I mean, it's really like a marriage.
Mhm.
We don't agree on everything at all.
That's what I was just thinking is like
Yeah.
I don't have a business partner, but with my wife, like I think the reason that we're able to stay together for like coming up on like 19 years
Oh
is,
my God,
thank
congratulations.
you.
That's amazing.
It's because when we're not agreeing, when things are not going well, we can talk about it and get through it, even if it doesn't
Yeah.
always look pretty. I think that's why more than like, oh, all the good stuff, because the good stuff is great, but yeah, I think it's about getting through the hard stuff.
I agree. Yeah. And I hope to make it to 19 years too. I just got married, well, a year ago.
Congrats.
Thank you. And so I am noticing that really that seems to be what is most important. It's like, forget what you see on Instagram. It's how are you getting through those difficult times? Like, what is your conflict management style? I think it's the same thing with the business because again, like, there are certain things where it's like, I feel like this or Wendy feels like that. And it's like, one thing that we'll do is how strongly do you feel about it? Like, I notice Wendy does that a lot. Like, I feel this, but I don't feel that strongly about it. So whatever you think is fine, which I think is really helpful because you just don't want to be like, I feel like this and that's it, because what if it's not that serious?
Oh, that's a great tip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that it's really, really helpful. And then there's just certain things that I know. So Wendy is very good at like knowing what she likes immediately and having an opinion. I'm not as much like that. I'm more like, oh, I have to like sit with it or like sleep on it and then look at it again or whatever. She's just like, no, I don't like this for these reasons, which I really admire. And so if there's things that are going to require something that has to be like design wise, it's like quick and just needs a decision, I'll just be like, you should just do this.
Because you're going to decide fast. Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to decide fast and you're going to know what you want versus me. I'm like, I don't know. Like I need a professional to come in and I need to like think about, and this is in my relationship too, like my marriage. I'm more like, well, I need to, wander through the store for like when we were planning the wedding. Like I need to wander through Michael's for 5 hours. And he's like, no, I'm not going to wander through Michael's with you for 5 hours. Like I want to have a list. And so it's like, how do you, like make those two things work? Yeah. And I think it can definitely work. I think honestly, for me, it's really about work ethic at the end of the day. Like if your work ethic matches, cause we work with a lot of people and God bless them. Like, and most people have that strong work ethic, but some people don't. And I think me and Wendy really do. And of course you would want to take care of yourself, but I know at the end of the day, like we will both get something done. It's not going to be like, oh, I don't know what happened. Like I dropped the ball completely. Like that will never happen. And I trust her and I know she trusts me. So I think that's important in a partnership because you don't always really know that though.
Yes.
Going into it.
Until you see.
Yeah. You need someone who like it doesn't matter. Like, or if we're, even for the podcast, for example, like we batch record and it's 7 to 8 episodes in one day.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. And you don't have super short episodes. So
no, we don't.
Wow. Okay. All right. I have to ask you more about that. So
yeah.
So you batch all of those in one day. And what does the planning process look like to be ready to do that?
Yeah. We're doing that right now. So we signed with a podcast agency. And the reason why we batch do them is since we live in different places and we noticed we were doing it kind of like this where, you're in different places and that still works well. But if we have a guest on, it's a little bit more tricky and it's a little bit easier just to kind of do them we have like an audio engineer and like a whole studio and he or she will do, all of the back end kind of for the recording, or not the back end, but like the technical stuff. And we will just focus on like the actual interviews. But how do we prepare for that? A couple of different things. I think I took some things from your team because I think did you guys have a, like a scheduler? Were you using like Acuity scheduling? Yeah. So I stole that because we were kind of doing the whole back and forth, like what time? Because we'll block off days where we both go to LA. So it'll be like usually Thursday and Friday. And we were just like, okay, well, the time zones were always different because like there's, people from all over the world. And so we're going to start doing that for this next season. We also we use Monday, which is kind of like a project management tool. And that's where we'll put all of our different guest episodes, questions for the guests. So what we do is like Wendy will produce like half of the episodes. I just say produce, like, I don't know, like what come up with the ideas and kind of see it through. I'll produce the other half.
I think that's producing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's producing. So we'll do it like that. And then from there, we also have like an assistant who might help with the, like I said, the scheduling aspect. And we use Google Forms. This is a good one. I don't know if people are on podcasts, but you know how you always have to get information from the guests, like your bio and your photos. We have a form that we just include. Yeah. And so that is amazing because you don't have to go back and forth and like find these emails. They're all in one place. So that's one other thing. And then we just really, the only other thing is questions for the guests. So we like to come up with a set of questions. I know some people are kind of more just kind of free flowing, which I really appreciate and admire that as well. I think for me, and I think for Wendy, if we don't have something to fall back on, it could be bad.
Same here.
Yeah, it's just like, it could be good or it could be, like, it just depends on what we're talking about. If we're talking about like SIBO, like small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, like you need questions. But if we're talking about like Reiki, like maybe it's a little more free flowing. So we typically will send the guest, we'll come up with the questions based on everything that we want to know or looking at their bio or the topic. And then we'll send it to the guest, like, at least a week before, just so if it's very science-based, like sometimes people want to know, like if we're talking about should you eat organic, like they want to know so they can make sure that they have the information beforehand. So that's kind of how that goes. And then our people who do the production of it or the podcast studio, they edit the episodes, then we'll listen to them. Try to listen. If they send it a week before, we'll listen a week before. They'll give us what ads we're doing and we'll record the ads. They'll place the ads and then they'll publish it and then we'll listen again once it's live. Because with whatever they use, Lisbon, I think you can still make edits. And that's basically the process.
Oh, that's so helpful. Thank you for
sure.
Really great walking us through that.
Of course.
Yeah, because there are a lot of people who are considering starting podcasts or are starting podcasts, and this is just priceless. So how many hours would you say, if you were to estimate, do you end up personally putting into one episode?
Oh, well, let's see. So thinking of the guest, we try to get like a wide variety of guests and topics. So maybe I'll spend a couple hours like thinking of, but really it's not even like in one sitting. It's just like, who do I come across? I'm reading a magazine. This person looks amazing, like that kind of thing. So I wouldn't even count that time.
You're just like collecting names and ideas.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And now that we have like some folks who kind of help us out, they'll come up with lists of people we may have not noticed, but really it's just coming across things in your everyday life. So that's one aspect that takes a little bit of time that's hard to quantify. But then when it comes to organizing everything for the season, I would say, I don't know, let me just say like per episode, 5 hours.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's like the hour of recording, there's the hour of listening, and we're not even personally doing the editing anymore. We used to, but then there's kind of going back and forth with that. There's like the emails with the guest. Mm-hmm. And we have people who help us now with like posting the show note episode, but even that takes like an hour or so.
Creating the show notes?
Yeah, creating the show notes. The way that we do the show notes, which might, if people create questions, it might be helpful, is we take the questions and we turn them into bullet points. So if the question was, is BMI BS, which is like our first episode, that's going to be this season, the way that we'd format it is like a bullet as part of the show notes would be, hear what X person has to say about whether or not BMI is BS. So that kind of makes it quicker and you don't have to re-listen. Yeah, just take the questions and form them into like statements.
Ooh, smart.
And it makes them way better. Because sometimes people just be like, we're going to talk about BMI and more, but that's not, nobody cares. I think maybe it's a journalist in me where it's like, okay, how do you make it interesting that somebody actually wants to click? Like, what would I want to click on? It would have to be like,
specific, right? Like,
very specific.
What's the answer? Oh, that's great. So how do you and Wendy make money through your company?
Another really good question, which it's like, this podcast is good because you ask those questions, but I feel like there's so many, especially within the dietitian community, it's so hush hush.
Oh, same
And I
with
don't
the
know.
therapist community.
Oh, really?
Absolutely.
Okay. It's
Yeah.
like, how is anyone making money? Like, I don't know. And I still like sometimes don't know. We're actually speaking about this at a dietitian conference next month, just about how do we work with brands? What does that look like? How do you negotiate? How much should you ask for? But how do we make money? So there's 3 different ways. There's definitely the podcast. Now that we're signed with the agency, we do podcast ads, and there will be up to, depending upon the length of the episode, there's up to 3 ads per episode. Some podcast ads are based on the number of downloads. Our agency, it's not based on that. It's more, because if you're a therapist and not that they only work with therapists, but if you're a therapist or a dietitian or whatever it is, and you have like a presence online, it's worth more than just the downloads, because you're actual professional. So they don't do it based on downloads. They just, I don't know what they come up with for the numbers, but it's different.
So it's like, it's something like it's more valuable because the engagement, like the value of each person in your community must be really high.
Exactly. Yeah. That's their thought process for it. So they will sell the ads. We give them a percent cut of that. And we don't pay them anything except for the percent cut where they have a studio, they have the audio engineers, they manage everything, like the ads, all of it. And we actually say no to a lot. The other day they were saying, they're like, wow, it's really cool that you guys say no to like a lot of the ads, because it reinforces the trust with your community. You're not just saying yes to everything. And I know as therapists too, like you have a responsibility. I'm not going to be out here promoting flat tummy tea. Not that they've asked us to do flat tummy tea, but it's like anything that is too out there with like, this is like an intense workout program that's not accessible. No, this is like this supplement that's promising this. No, it's like, we'll just say no. So I would say keep your integrity for sure. So that's one thing, how we make money. And then the other way we make money is through our online programs. We have done a bunch of different ones. So I told you that we started off with shirts and then we reinvested that money and we did these kind of like digital downloads, which we made not a ton, like honestly, it's not a lot of money, but like enough to at least, I think we reinvested that money on a better website. And then we had the idea of doing online courses, probably like 2016. And yeah, we decided to do a couple different ones. So we have like a meal planning challenge. We have this course, Walk Into Wellness, which is really just like everything. If anyone was like, I just want a balanced way to like live a better life, it's all those things. And it's funny because we have an intern now, because now that we're like more health at every size and more inclusive, and just we want to make sure that we're never triggering anyone with anything that we say. We had the intern kind of re-listen, because we did it like 2 years ago, re-listen to kind of make sure. And today she was like, oh my God, like I love this course so much that I listened to it twice. And I was like, what?
Oh, that's amazing. So she was going through and listening to see that there was nothing triggering in the course.
Yeah, just like a sensitivity a sensitivity look from another perspective, because we do talk about calories, but we don't talk about it in a way that is traditional. It's more just like the episode or the module is titled How Many Calories Do You Need a Day? But the focus of it is listening to your body. It's like, kind of like a little bit of like, here's, typical ranges for like these typical things, like very briefly, but more it's like, but a better way to know is like my hunger, my fullness, like all those different things. And so just making sure that like you're not doing anything that's going to be triggering to folks. And it's interesting because we actually this season we're going to have the editor-in-chief of Self magazine, and we love Self because they've done an amazing job of realizing that wellness like has an issue with like inclusivity and just BS. And they really tried to make, I've seen a huge improvement with them, and they've just publicly come out and like told other media, like, we're trying, this is what we're doing. So we had the editor on and we're just like, this is great what you're doing. We love it. We're seeing bigger bodies, doing fitness models. Like, this is amazing. Like I'll see a Black person for some skin stuff, which I've never seen before. But anyway, she said that one of the things they do now is have a full-time sensitivity reader who just goes through. Yes. I'm like, oh, good job. Every single thing. And it's like, could this be offensive? I don't know why all companies do not do this. It's so basic. And they used to only do it for like pieces that could be triggering, but now she's like, no, we do it for
anything.
And
could be. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything could be. So anyway, sorry, that's a tangent. But so we have these courses. So now we work with a business coach, who told us, she's like, and this is, I wanted to just be real with like the online courses. I don't think these days anyone's getting rich off online courses. We probably total off our online courses made like $60,000, but we've been for over a couple years. So it's like, if you're looking to work full time and it's two people who live on the East Coast and West Coast, like it's obviously not enough money. So we had to like pivot and do other things as well. But anyway, she told us, she's like, yeah, I'm seeing this across all of wellness, is this idea that, people are oversaturated with kind of courses. And then it's not just health professionals. It's not just dietitians. It's not just therapists, like everybody who's a food enthusiast or who practices self-care or whatever is like, I am an expert. And so then you have that competition. So it's tough. But anyway, so now she's like, just put all your courses in one. And so now we did, and we're calling it the Best Of program, which we're really excited about. And we haven't launched that yet. It's on our site, but it's not officially launched. And then it just like, we're done for a while. So we have that. And then that's one aspect of our business. One other thing, I don't know how technical you want to get with ideas, but for like money making, but, one thing we started doing was, have you heard of a tripwire? Or do you think your audience knows what?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So,
but probably my audience doesn't. So basically the idea being that I'd love to hear what you mean by tripwire, but I'm thinking it's like a small purchase that then kind of trips the comfort with and like kind of builds trust so that you then go forward and become more of a committed customer.
Yes. My thinking of it is more also quick purchase. So the way I look at it is like, so what we did was anyone who signs up for our email list, we basically have a tripwire that pops up about our meal planning challenge. Cause we notice a lot of our people, they really want just like help with cooking delicious meals, which is our Best Of. We put a ton of stuff in there that's really just like meal prep programs, because we do a lot of that too. But anyway, so we did this meal planning challenge tripwire where we slashed the price by like 75%. And all you have to do is sign up for our email. It'll pop up, and that has gone really well. Like, I think we sell it for like $19 and we don't promote our email list or anything. And in a day we might sell like 3 or something like that. So that's nice, because it's just like, you're not really doing anything. So I would recommend
that's lovely.
Considering, something like that is just a little bit more, it's a, kind of an impulse buy kind of thing. And then we haven't like linked it to a bigger program yet, but we probably will eventually. We're just kind of playing around.
Hey, listener. So this is future Annie jumping in with pieces of information that past Annie didn't have. So I kind of kick myself at this moment in the interview because I didn't go back and loop back around and ask Jessica more about this. After we stopped recording, I asked her, we had a little more of a chat about online courses, and I was talking about my theory, that's not just mine, that online courses that are evergreen, meaning they are just digital, there's no actual interaction with the leader, that those are either on their way out or they're just not going to be making a lot of money. But that online courses or programs where there's a component of interaction, where there is some built-in time with the leader, the facilitator, the creator of the course, that those are alive and well. And Jessica agreed with that as we were no longer recording. So I just wanted to put that in there, because if you were thinking about creating some kind of online course program, anything like that, I didn't want you to listen to this and just get the idea, oh, those days are over. That's not the case in my opinion. That's not the case in Jessica's opinion. We were talking about something very specific here, which was digital products that don't come with a component of interaction. All right. Hope that's clear. We're going to go back to past Annie, and she's going to continue this conversation with Jessica. So I wanted to ask you, what, if you're going to time travel back to the time when you first started this collaboration with Wendy, What advice would you have for the Jessica of that time?
Well, I think the main advice would be, yes, you want to think of it as a creative outlet. That's great. But at the end of the day, so my mom is an entrepreneur. And when I say entrepreneur, I mean like she always just kind of has something she's working on. I mean, she's also a teacher and she works as a teacher too. But like at heart, that's who she is. And so I just got it from her. I've always been like that too. And so it's like, I know that I like working on, a business, even if I don't do it full time, like it's still always going to be part of me. So anything that you enjoy doing that could be part of your career, like when we started Food Heaven, like it should be thought of like, how can you, I would say like, write a business plan. Think about how would you make money? We had no idea because still, like I said, it's hush hush. How do people even make money? So we didn't really know. We're just like, oh, it's only like private practice, but there's so much more than that. And within nutrition, they really encourage you. It's really just like go and work in clinical and work in a hospital, and that's your only option. And then we're just like, wait, that doesn't sound right. So I would think about, do the research to come up. I would say do the research, contact people who seem to be doing something different that seems like something you could see yourself doing, ask them questions and figure out how to write a business plan, maybe like 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, that's going to get you to the place that you'd want to be for like that, to be like self-sustaining.
Okay. Very cool. And you already did, as you mentioned, you did the smart thing of starting your email list right away.
And I would start an email list right away too.
Yeah. But you don't need that advice because you already did it.
Yeah. That's number one. And maybe not like, I don't know. I think people get overwhelmed with, and I don't know, because it's like we started a while ago, so I'm not really sure. I could see like today being over it, like, oh my God, there's too much. Not to be negative, but I would think about with social media, like what are the platforms that you actually enjoy? And maybe just stick to those and not feel like, because we were like on Tumblr and like every last thing, and it was just way too much. And I would just stick to a couple, just thinking about what is the work that you enjoy, and hopefully there's a way that you can make that joyful work actually, something you can do that's self-sustaining as well.
Yeah. So like you can show up enthusiastically, and that's the place you want to be.
That's what I would recommend. You don't want to do anything where you're dreading it, because there's a lot of stuff where, it's, it's easy to dread. And also even, being an entrepreneur, you can kind of decide like, what percent do I want to do this? What percent that? I don't know if I believe in like, I do a little manifestation. I don't know, but it's like all the things that we had wanted, they just kind of happened, and that was really cool. So yeah, just like putting out there what you actually want, because otherwise you don't even know what you want, and it might not come.
Thank you so much for being so generous with your time.
Of course.
Find out about Jessica Jones at foodheavenmadeeasy.com. We learned a lot about how Jessica and Wendy developed and grew their podcast. She shared a ton that you can apply to your business, whether it has anything to do with podcasting or not. If you found this episode supportive, please take a minute and head over to Apple Podcasts to give us a rating or review. If you leave a review, I would love it if you would mention something that you found helpful from Jessica in this particular episode. Thanks so much for listening, and I will see you next time.